That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Now we can move on to the Q&A session. Judges, if you may. Yeah, 5 minutes. I would like to remind the judges that we have a maximum of 10 minutes for the Q&A. So thank you very much.
Okay, Manapun, can I ask you? That's an interesting transformation you have from the bamboo foot cover to your design. Can you tell me how do you decide to the segment of the um, cover, the bamboo cover in your building? So I think it's not this, not all of them. It's not all the same size, right? Some of them is shorter and wider. And so, how do you decide the size or the volume?
The site,
The size, the measurement of the segment.
the site pan light.
Mm, the size, the volume of the shelter.
What is this light?
Yeah, you can.
Um,
You know, you have the plan, right? The slide. I think it's in slide 15.
about the site plan light.
Yeah, that's one.
Actually, this area is like they have the local environment in there. Local area, it consists of like the this area is like the local area with like the community in there, and I shoot this location that I can show you. And the site is like and sit actually like the cultivation area in there, and they can sit with the marsh. I don't know how to say it, lake or marsh, but it's not a river. And I think this area is like interesting, and I want like to use to choose this plate and to like to. I think this area is like a symbol area for our country because people in Laos like with they have like with the agriculture like and as well like the cultivation area, and I want like to use this location and to how can I make something that to respond to that surround that area and to like to respond to the community in there. So this is my idea that I have to design some building there, and the purpose of this building is like to respond surrounding that area and the community in there for like the farming.
Yeah, you said that one of the value that you took from the past is the simple way of life of Lao people. Is it it?
Yes,
So
I think Lao is like and like they have uh what do you say about the question? Like I have not clear.
no, one of the highlight that you have from the past value is the simple way of life, right? I think
Yes.
you have it in the beginning of your slides, and then I want to know how do you transform it or how do you use it in your design, the principle of the simple way of life in your design.
Um, yes, my first idea that I have to create to design it that I think about like now we have like the simple lifestyle like and people they live with like the self-sufficient life, and I think this is like the good to like to the let us how to say um I think people in there they have like the self-sufficient life is like what equal like the good thing, and I think I want to keep it and like to how can I, because now people live like the just a minute, can you hear me because I
Yeah.
hear something in the mic, can my
Can hear you.
We can hear you. Fine.
ah
Just fine.
yes, thank you. Yes, can I about the idea is come from like the unique lifestyle of the farmer, like with a simple way of life, that there is only a curry way of life. The farmer are like involved in the agriculture, especially like the light cultivation, and which is that a self-sufficient life. And nowadays we live like the world that people value train more than own life. And I think the light field are filled with high lights building, and now the new generation is not like the familiar with this area, and how can I creating something, or how can we create agriculture like the value of them, and this is my idea, like
Okay.
how to get people attention to itself by this area and create some building in there.
Okay. Thank you.
Hello,
Yeah, yeah.
hello, Manapon. Yeah, is your build? Is this your project or a building with this closed envelope, or it's just a open, totally open space?
Yes. Can yes, I can hear. Yes, can you repeat again because I can hear very well.
Is your building totally opened?
Yeah, this is a like open space, but I have to some to design the elevation that I have to use like the curve of the light stalk to cut off the open space, to cut off the panel of the roof to be the open space in there.
So there are no entrance, no doors, so people
Yes,
can
no door,
come
but
into from yeah, from everywhere.
um can I that I show you the pen?
Because it's not so clear on your floor plan.
Yeah.
Seven-
About the side that I have the entrance way in there, that is like the bridge or the paved way. You have to like to walk into this way to the entrance, and in this this page it connect to the village in there, but I did not show you in this. Let me show you in this plan. This will above will you can see like this is the project, and um, how can you come to this building is you have to like to work by this the page, and this is the main entrance. But in this that you have like the park in there, but it's not shown in there. But in this view overview view this it show like the page is connect to like the village, community village in there. Um, can I show you? Actually, this village is like they consist of the village and the area of cultivation area with the marsh. And I think how can I like to create something in there like to can attract too much in this area, but to respond slow this area and to make it like to be the place for people come to visit and to learn about like the right field and see the lifestyle of the people in there and like to have the experience in this building, like to bring people from like far away or in the country to like to forget in this area. And this is my idea.
May I ask one question regarding your material? Your
Yes.
project, I mean, what comes to mind first and foremost are these shelters, is this banded bamboo structure that if you go back to your concept, we go back where, no, down, slide 23,
Yeah.
here, it's 23, you
Yes.
show very nicely how these roofs will appear lightly, not on the lower picture, but on the very right one. But what do you have in mind for the material for your roofing so that you don't lose this beauty of this texture that the material will provide?
The material
For the the roofing.
the top look the panel like
I do assume that even though it's open and even though it's not ideal for a rainy season or when it's stormy, but you will probably still need some level of waterproofing. How do you solve this without destroying this kind of sensitive appearance of wicker work?
yes can let me talk about it. About the structure in this area that I have used shall say the column structure in this building. This is the curve, the curve of the structure, and the roof like I have used some local material about like the bamboo of the thatched bamboo and the fat tended bamboo to be to cover the roof. And this area I use the main material in the building is with the kuram and with the bamboo thatch with the pattern to be the curve to cover the roof. Yeah. Yes.
Thank you.
And some flexible furniture.
I think that is all for the Q&A session for Manapun. Thank you very much for your presentation, and judges, thank you for also commenting on the work. So now I would like to continue the presentation to the next participant is Ambika Lamba from India. Yes.
Yes.
You
I'll
can
just
start
share my
sharing your screen.
Namaste, my name is Ambika Lamba and I'll be showing you my project that is based in Northeast India. Recalibrating the vernacular, Mawphlong, Meghalaya. Situated in the East Khasi Hills, Mawphlong is home to one of the most special sacred groves in the world. This settlement of the Khasi community share unique rituals, agricultural practices, and building traditions primarily shaped by its terrain that has to withstand both floods as well as seismic disturbances, with perhaps an even greater and growing risk as the local community is beginning to replace traditional building systems with concrete. This begs the question, can modern innovation, combined with the use of local materials such as mud, bamboo, local grasses, and wood, recalibrate and revive the vernacular architecture that the community takes pride in? The site chosen for this exploration is one that is situated between the much revered sacred grove and the community forest. It is part of the natural expansion of the Khasi Heritage Village, located right here, and faces the challenge of balancing the needs of the community's economic and social aspirations with the value systems of long-held traditional beliefs. Diagrammatic evolution shows you how one arrives at this form, from raising the volume to protect itself from floods and earthquakes, to giving vertical hierarchy to community spaces, each made accessible by the addition of ramps. The program is envisaged as an awareness center for social and environmental consciousness and creativity to create a platform for exchange of energies between the community and curious individuals from all over the world. Multiple living spaces such as homestays, guest rooms, live work studios for researchers, paired with workshops, multi-purpose spaces where retreats, conservation practices of the groves, and traditional making practices are imagined. This slide shows you an image of the proposed intervention that gently adorns itself with tall pine trees, along with the programs and their respective locations. These plans take you through the various levels. The ground level shows you the central courtyard with seating spaces, and the ramp to the right that takes you up to the public programs. The first program reached by the ramp is the tea room and reception. On the other end, the guest accommodation is oriented to attain a view of the forest of stilts as well as a scenic view of khasi pine trees that adorn the site. A language of sliding partitions and folding doors is followed throughout the project. The ramp then brings you to a library with a semi-open extension for visitors to enjoy the view with a good book in hand. The researchers have their dwelling spaces linked to the research lab on the level above, allowing them easy access to both the workshops at the deck level as well as the ground level. The community dining area located above the kitchen allows for communication among the site's inhabitants and passing visitors throughout the day. The last plan shows you the workshop spaces that are located on the viewing deck to make sure that the most public programs receive the highest vantage points and unique views for one and all to access. Owing to the flexible furniture layout, the functions within are interchangeable. Coming to how the structure is able to stand so tall, the filigree of stilts supporting the volumes are a take on the ancient Japanese Shinbashira method of adding a central core in shrines to resist seizures. But in this case, one core is replaced by a series. In order to maintain their slenderness, the steel and locally sourced bamboo columns increase in density in places with higher loads or bundle up with diagonal bracings to conceal service cores, as depicted in the wall section. This section highlights the public programs one comes across on their journey up the ramp. The structure exudes clean verticality while still being towered by the tall khasi pine trees and their foliage. To the left is a balsa model that highlights these proportions. The ramp ensures a 2.5-minute walk from the ground to the highest level. This section highlights the more enclosed aspects such as the guest accommodation spaces and the community dining space above it. Other aspects of the site include the detention pond that not only collects rainwater but also prevents stagnation by hosting a variety of amphibians. Water travels down the series of ponds and ultimately percolates into the ground. The second image right here shows you the locally grown orchid screens that play the role of a lively facade for the guest accommodation spaces. Water from the drain pans of showers are filtered and water the screens via a system of drip irrigation. Lastly, this intervention seeks to create an interplay between the vertical lines of bamboo and the tree trunks of the forest. The filigree of stilts serve as railing for the ramps, an element of play for children that run in and around the columns, while still remaining stable to be able to gently sway with the wind, similar to the workings of a tree. Thank you for your time.
This is a depiction of the physical model, and now the virtual one that takes you through the entire intervention. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Amika, for the presentation. Now we're moving on to the Q&A sessions. Judges, you can ask questions now.
Ambika, can you explain that Shinbashira method once again, briefly?
I shall do that. So initially, looking at the context in the site, I saw these tall, slender pine trees, and I wondered how these strong winds didn't let them buckle, because in physics, we always learned that the taller, the slender you go, the more chances are of things collapsing. But since climate was a very important issue for me, I came across how Japanese shrines have always a central pillar that resists seismic stresses because of the load they carry. So let me just take you to the wall section. So similarly, I imagined that since there are a lot of stills, they would increase in density in areas where there are service cores. And these service cores would pull down the weight and make sure that everything wouldn't collapse with the weight of the wind. So I was hoping that these bamboo stills could conceal service cores and create a very harmonious look to the entire intervention.
Okay, and what is the material for the roof?
It's similar to what was currently seen in the area. It's an interlocked half-cut bamboo, and then it can have a layer of thatch over it. Usually the locals replace these sort of roofs every 5 years. Since it is so lightweight, that is possible to do. Whereas in the interior, I have used a bamboo as well, but an inverted king post bamboo truss. And to be able to integrate these vernacular and local materials with newer technology, to increase the span, I used a cable, tension cable made of steel. As you can see right here, that is what it looks like.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Is there any question?
Ambika, somewhere I read in your report, you said something about reviving the vernacular.
Yes.
Can you explain that a little bit?
Right.
What do you mean by reviving the vernacular? Is it through this kind of stilt technology or something else?
Yes. So mainly it was material, the material aspects. Currently, what you see in Morphlong is that because of the mass influx of population, people have actually stopped using local materials such as bamboo or mud to build their houses. Now they've all become very generic RCC blocks that you see. That's also caused a lack of livelihood. And for each generation that passed on their techniques of construction, this no longer happens, which is why I was hoping my intervention could sort of bridge that gap and serve as an annex to the current heritage village that is located on the site, where not only the tourists could see what takes place and how it can be reinvented and recalibrated by, as you said, combining it with modern technology or modern materials, which in my case, I thought steel would be great for, but it would also empower the local community to look at their own materials on site and say, yes, we can build from this. So it was a sort of a collaboration of those ideas.
And you mentioned somewhere in the report there's a sort of seismic challenges in the site. Is that quite serious?
It does have earthquakes. It's not and no extreme cases of earthquakes have taken place, but it is located in a seismic zone. So the main dangers here were floods and I would say strong winds, which is why I prefer to raise the entire structure from the ground plane. But since I did not want to hurt or cut down any trees, I made sure to place and orient the structure, as you can see, to carefully mold the forest instead of building within the forest.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much,
Thank you
for the presentation and for the judges. Now we're moving to Fu Xuanhui from Taiwan. You can start sharing your screen.
I'm Fu Shenhui from Taiwan, Fengjia University. My topic is spatial impression rethinking of boundary element. In the design project, I try to use architecture to describe the urban and rural memories in Shanxi, using the space element derived from the site to rethink as a whole. When approaching to the site, several contradictory space could regard as continuous space sequences for visitor. For instance, the skyline of the site, entrance of the temple, boundary between schoolyard and temple. The site, located in Xiacaonan, a typical countryside community outside Taichung City in central Taiwan. Surrounded by industrial zone, the neighborhood is old, ruined, and on the decline like most of the rural village in Taiwan. Pavilion, kindergarten, and landscape design were required in this design assignment. I try to rethink the relationship between temple, school, community, and several neglected space. I propose to reinterpret the urban and rural landscape throughout the design process. Community can be entered through the trail on the right. These are facades facing the entrance and facing the community. On the facade of kindergarten, windows stand as elements correspond to the large-scale industrial zone and the small-scale community. Also, the stepping roofs symbolize both local factory and houses. Those continuous window in units refers to the factory as well as those assorted window correspond to the traditional houses. Slapping the roof leads to a triangular second floor. Four-man wall can be seen on the plane as the structure and space division. The opening on the walls complete the transparency. Pavilion is on the right. The scale changing along the stepping roof to usage scenarios appear with the flow, and the triangular space creates a playing corner only for school children. The wall extends from the ground level to the third, so the smallest scale corner corresponds to the three-story void. The square shape creates a recreation area purely for children, and the circular shape serves as a spiral staircase. Activity room is on both sides of square, and the circle is connected to the entrance of the kindergarten. The two define a middle atrium. The atrium of kindergarten is defined by pillars, and relationship between triangle, square, and circle can be felt. Red geometric form make the space more significant. Structure as a hint of access, following the trace of schoolyard. Plain ground elements become the fragment of previous structure and transforming into street furniture. Trying to connect the spirituality and common, I reform a ceremonial stance in the pavilion by reading the indoor assembly hall and the obscure stand on the side aisle. The pavilion facing the school. The pavilion is composed of four redefining boundary elements: factory, fields, ditch, and berry walls. Factory as the extent of the rice field, ditches fall along the way dividing blocks, and fence draw the boundary between houses. I translate the four selected elements into second and third meaning. The relationship can be read clearly in the master plan. Pavilion on the other side facing the community, separated and defined by the fabric wall. Extension of horizon, variation dots position, blurring of boundary, duality of waterway. The kindergarten respectively use stairs, atrium, waterways, and fence to continue the previous boundary composition. Along the pavement and steps, the entrance of the kindergarten emerge. At the end of the bridge, the sitting area and street furniture form a small stage on the boundary. Furniture structure underneath the window of classroom and office create a rethink of inside and outside. The waterway and pavement extend. To conclude, all elements, including individual buildings, spaces, and objects, were integrated and intervened together. It's just like a frame painting assembled with children playing on a recreation ground, teacher speaking, and residents sitting on the bench at the adjacent site. All the time fragments were collected into a beautiful memory and tranquil small village. Let's enjoy the video. This is the end of my presentation.
All right, thank you very much for Fu Shuanghui from Taiwan. Now the Q&A session is open for the judges who would like to ask questions or give a brief comment, please, judges.
Well, I find the scheme very sensitive to the site. I think you have taken all the, how to say, elements, both the industrial factory settings as well as the existing village, and try to weave in what is, I would say, fairly institutional building, yet within that boundary, create something that's informal. I thought that was quite well handled. Looking at the overall, of course, I don't know whether schools like that require a sports track as large as as the one that you have. So I don't know that component there very well. But I thought the kindergarten relationship to the temple area, all these general pieces are quite nicely done, and I think the sighting as well. Yeah, so I think a good piece of work. Yeah, thank you.
This kindergarten is supposed to be for the age group about up to 5 years.
Can you say that again?
The kindergarten,
Yes.
the school is for students up to the age group of 5 years maximum. So they are little kids, no?
这边年龄层是大概多少？
It's like the 4 to 7, the
4 to
kindergarten.
7.
Yeah, but the other side school is elementary school and junior high school. Yeah.
Okay, so what are the special provisions you have considered for these kids, their age group?
In the kindergarten part, I use the scale later. Second, the scales changing. The scale changing by the stepping roof that can create a walkway on the right and also a reading corner only for child on the left. And the equipment outside the furniture from beside the kindergarten is also only for the kindergarten students.
When looking at your single renders, the single pictures, then they're sometimes very clear. It's not just the views, but even the character of the single parts stands very clear. However, when I look at the entire picture of your master plan, the total model, then I'm still a bit confused what you are really after. It's almost a little bit deconstructivistic. How did you derive at the selection, at the repertoire of your forms, of your shapes? They're all independent and they kind of interlink relatively randomly. Not when you go closer, not when you look at the single part, but when you look over it.
I think on the side, the relationship between the original relationship between school, temple, and community and some neglected space are complex and also overlap. And I think when I do the design should be discussed as a whole, because just like the original relationship. And the little bit like module and geometric shape system can connect each other of them and also done the clear division between each other.
Thanks.
Thank you for your good presentation. And I think this work is a very high level of perfection in architecture. So the assignment is also so very good, nice. And the question is, you set defining the 4 elements of the site. So can you explain about defining the 4 elements of the sites, more the detail.
The four elements from the site is actually connected to the topic I say, the boundary. And from the factory, it is the first the boundary of the site and its extent of the rice field. And rice field is the second. And ditches stick to the site and flow along the road or the way dividing the blocks. And the barrier wall define the relationship between houses, traditional houses in site. Yeah. Just like the red part and the blue go along the white road and into the blocks, and the smallest go is the houses, and it was defined like this.
Okay, thank you.
A small question. Could you please show us the perspective of your open atrium defined by column and geometric wall? There is a curved wall in red brick.
This one?
No.
Or in fabric? Is the
no, the outside one. Outside. Yeah. This one.
Yeah.
Not this one. This one.
The fabric wall is the square shape.
No, not this here. One. Another one.
Another one. This.
No, it's in between space of your column of your square vertical space with the curved staircase. Do you have that one? No.
Curved wall or the fabric wall?
I don't know if you have it in your, since I'm reading your original panel. This one, yes. Oh, no, it's true. Maybe we are not in the same rhythm, so you always miss. Not this one, it's a elevation. It's not elevation, it's a, yes, this one, please, keep it. Oh, maybe you change that one. Since in my yes, you cut some part of your roof. I just want to ask about your roof actually, but in this image you cut it.
The material or why?
Not material, the roof, the form of the roof actually, because there are the different part of your roof, and also the wall with your roof. How does it? What happens there? But now, yeah, we cannot see that. Okay, get it. Because you cut your image. Yeah, it's not the original one. Yeah.
I use the material from,
because you have these two vertical elements actually. One is the curved wall, another is the rectangular wall.
Right, from the wall is because the wall is extended from the school side, and the school side first is the geometry is from the sport field reference from the sport field, and all extend to the kindergarten. And come to the kindergarten, it has a module structure system. So it's turning from a circle to a square, the structure stuff. And the material is, because I use a really material is a connection to the community, because I done the sign in the little bit simple and little bit abstract way. So the material stand as a character as the elements to correspond to the traditional community.
I think that is all for this presentation. The time is up. Thank you very much, Fu Suan Hui from Taiwan, and the judges for commenting for the work. And now, before we continue, I would like to invite everyone to watch a short video from our sponsor, Beacon. Enjoy.
Indonesia has a vision to become a superior country. Through this vision, infrastructure development is carried out to improve Indonesia's economy. Bricon took part in this vision by becoming the best light brick manufacturer in meeting the needs of quality lightweight brick for every construction. Bricon has been established since 2013 and will continue to grow. We are committed to providing the best quality, quantity, and services for the Indonesia people. From the selection of each material used until the process of shipping goods. We use silica sand and other materials that are guaranteed the quality. The production process uses autoclaves with the newest technology and standardized. The production process is carried out appropriately to maximize the amount of production capacity. The delivery is always fast and on target to almost all regions of Indonesia. With a factory area of 10 hectares and a production capacity of 2,000 cubic meters AAC block per day, Bricon is here to fully market needs. Supported by our skilled and integrated workforce, every phase of production process is always overseen by our quality control to ensure the precision, consistency, and product quality. Our ability to be consistent with the company's vision has been recognized by the people of Indonesia, both in and outside the island of Java, evidenced by the various awards we received. Because customer satisfaction is always our main interest. We are sure to be able to compete and keep up with current technological developments. Bricon will be the best choice for your high-quality lightweight concrete. Bricon, lead for future.
So thank you very much, everyone. Now, before we continue to the next presentation from Panisha, now we will have a short 10-minute break. So now I see the time is 2:55. Maybe we'll continue back here at 3:05 Jakarta time. So can get a glass of water, maybe rest a little bit so we can be fresh for the next batch of the presentation. So I will see you in 10 minutes, everyone.
Not now.
Yes, start now, Professor. Can start now.
I already took break.
Oh, it's okay. A short break before the last batch of the presentation, Professor.
All right, welcome back, everyone. Before we proceed to the next presentation, I want to make sure that all the judges are already here. Okay, so up next we have Patnica Maniwan from Thailand. You can
Thailand.
start sharing your screen.
Okay. Can I start now?
Yeah.
Hello, I am Panisha Maniwan from King Mongkut Institute of Technology, Lakabang, Thailand. My project Hongtoi Living and Learn. Hongtoi is one district of the Bangkok, Thailand. This district is surrounded with the numerous important economic zones of the country. The whole is a fast developing district where the famous university and the international cargo harbor take place. This leads to the region become very packed with the different culture and influences. The site is located on the Golden Triangle, which where the three social streams meet: educational, financial, and slum. But the future plan of this district is to build a smart city on the top of the land in the next 10 years. But the plan is contradicting with the social context that have a diversity of the people. Hongtoi Living and Learn want to be the bridge for the local community to have prepared for change. The main point is how can we create the interaction between learning center and the community. Nearby 5 kilometers around the site have no green area and public space at all. That's why landscape is being the main concept and tool which lead to the sustainability, improve the life of community, and also bring more visitors into the area. Start with link to site of different society by created the community park along the site and also created other sub-clean space, then place the function focus on the relation to each community. At the first floor, show how green space flowing to the side and created the horizontal lawn stripe make the shorten distance of the walk paths. The opposite side of the educational community use the active scape to develop creativity in the site, created a positive learning environment by rise up the second floor to make the double space for basement. This way it brings ventilation flow to the building and giving sense of familiar with the tradition. Back of the site, which nearby the local community, use the passive space for supported about the coexist in society. Next, separate part out of the building to increase the nature part and the ventilation through the space, then making the harmony between the nature and building appeared by using the characteristic of the located place. Second floor show the transition of the building and the nature, how increasing of green space can interact with the activities on the second floor. Almost the atmosphere of green space can minimize the cost of the overall building air conditioning. At the mezzanine floor, which where the auditorium and exhibition belong, showing the main screen to participate with the active side, and back of it being a waiting area that people can share on a passive side. Idea of making the appearance of the building is a way to combine the building and the nature that inspired by the physical geography of the region, which is the view with several little hills, and using the individually material of the site to create the facade. That is the wooden palette that used in the harbor industry. By upcycling the material, make building be extend the nature to city. Construction detail. Using the wide span and the flat step floor. At the mezzanine floor, rise up to open the flow of the park along the side and created the virtual sunlight by using the translucent frame and LED light to make the meeting space be perceived of exterior environment. Another part using a beam and column structure. Roof plan is show about the gable roof that being character of the building. Activities be intervened to landscape space for supported the diversity of the user. Section part is show how space of the building influence to exterior. The various activity to the landscape being manifold to the side that have the middle spot of the martial area. The auditorium side is a transition space that making the shock space while walking through. Section diagram is show how nature, flow of the space, and people merging together in this project. Our main problem is the lack of equality. Not everyone can spend much money to access the public space. Each individual should be given of the opportunity of having a space. This is the most important step of the urbanization. Next is a video part. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Patnicha, for the wonderful presentation. Now we go on to the Q&A session. Judges, you have 10 minutes to ask questions.
Nietzsche.
Yes.
Okay. Can I have a discussion about your project? It seems like you want to make your project as the place where people meet between three communities. Is it right?
Yes.
And you want to make it like equity more than equality. Is it? The equality of the people that may meet in your site. So can you tell me more about the programming, the logic that you want, or the activity, and how you arrange the activity in your site so that your goal can be achieved?
About this project is about the places that's where the diversity of the people and the urbanization and the local community is unconnect with each other. The development is go fast, but the local community is stay still. That's why they give us to be created how to find a way to solve this problem by doing the project that is a learning community. Our role as a being learning center for the community. I thought, how can we create a way to giving thought to local people this place for all for you can be used, be co-owner to take care of this place. That how this project be concerned about user that much. That's how this project have design between a combination of the building, the nature, and the landscape is being added to this site by the interaction community, like the back of it being a community of the local, the front of it being a community of the educational. That's why we have a diversity of the function because of the people in the space have a diversity too. But the function is be used in a different way. Like active function is used more on the side of the educational part, and the local community is being like a function that give more like a coexist in society.
Okay, so the community park site is on this because you have like this very specific triangle, right?
Yes.
In your around your site. So the entrance is from the university and the community park is from the slum area. Is it like that? Because you have very different character of around of community around your area. You have the financial and the slum and the university, and I see that there is a highway in front of the university that separate the slum and the university already.
On this part, right?
Yeah, that part. So how do you expect people from the slum area to your park if it's already separated by the highway, or is there some underpass under the highway?
But under the highway, the is a be a road too. This can be a cross off to use our function, and our function is placed on the to serve each community. Like educational function is served for the university. Commercial function is served more to the slum and the local community.
Yeah, I know, but how about the highway? how do people from the slum go to your functions, to go to your area?
The highway elevated as often in Bangkok. Here.
Is it? Is the highway elevated?
Yes, I can increase. So
Do you have picture of the surrounding area?
of the surrounding that area,
Yeah, the one that show that the highway is elevated or
yeah, that's elevated and people can cross of a road to come to the site.
okay. Okay, that's my question. Probably the other jury can.
Can you go in the site, this site?
Yes.
So yeah, the site is biggest slum in Bangkok. And this site is given to all students or you select by yourself?
They giving us to choose about the three sites. I should decide because of it have a like if we created this we have a it this site is most impact about the diversity of people.
Mhm.
That's why the reason it use it. I select this site.
So could you approach it to the slum? No?
I mean approach to the slum like
Yeah.
uh like
dangerous?
on this side is a slum site, so people from the slum can enter our site from the front and the back row. That this function is be like the multi-functional that can be used in the time base.
So yeah, reading the site selection condition is how design can make an adjustment through the place that have lack of equality. It's so difficult, you know, the theme. So that's why I select you. So there's some difference compared to the usual the town or this. And also, do you have some idea for the slum site situation?
About the situation around this area, right? This I decided on the base of this have a diversity of people around this site. So how the place that would have the activity and how we can bring the people come to this place, like what is kind of people, how can make them feel like this is not to being feel like tension to use this place. So I can explain more about combination in my site. I want to like collect about the urban structure, nature, and the tradition space to make the people feel like comfortable while using the site. The massing, the form being on grid because of the familiar of image of building from the Thai people for a long time. Like the first, the basement floor is only have a structure of the columns, and the second floor is a patio that being a part of the Thai house. So I divided into like into the rooms to make the feeling that they'll feel like more in the tradition space. It make them feel more like comfortable. It's be like something is really there but not fully visible. It's about bring the transition like a tradition space to make people feel more comfortable while using the space. So the habit of like the space I put some detail on it, like many of Thai people feel more comfortable on the have a hunker down situation more than sitting a chair. The how the like is a transition space is being a detailed part to make more about feel free in using the space.
So yeah, I mean, it looks very usual. So I wonder this your plan is comfortable for the people in slum.
Comfortable to the people who live in slum, right?
To the people, not people in slum. Is that? But I think there are some different community in slum. Do you think about it? No.
Like community in the slum, the diversity inside it, right?
Yeah.
I have a small question.
Okay.
In my understanding, I think the community park, you designed in between these three buildings is quite important core for the overall site for your overall project to linkage to link the different part of this community and also university and even the slum. But it's a little bit confused to me that this part is somehow is totally for the pedestrian park, but you only yes you have put some water, some nicely some greenery there, but you also put the toilets there, and the facade, the elevation of these buildings which face into this park are not so active. So I make a little bit confusion that is this in between space is the most active space, or it's just some space outside these three buildings. And also another things related to that is from the north part there are two paved paths with some pavement. It's directly go to lead people to the toilet. It's since on the plan the pavement somehow indicates the people where to walk through, but somehow I'm confused where people can really access to your building, access to your this community park, this green space, this open space. So are they since if you put the closed elevation, some are survey space, some are toilets there, this space cannot so active. So I don't know how do you think about what's your consideration on that, or is there some interactive between this inside and this outside space?
By doing this it design like the first floor is being part of the basement that let the ventilation flow to the side, and this is like a semi outdoor and giving more space to add the green space into it to like give more space inside the building. We can feel about the exterior environment. That's about it.
Do you have a plan that shows in reality the connections between your triangle property and those neighboring areas? Not just a diagram, but where we see how people cross over from where they come.
Yeah.
Just a pedestrian crossing, or is it a level crossing, or is it even a green crossing? Or because we are still, in a sense, in between three roads, and the road is always an obstacle, especially to the university. You have two roads parallel. That is already quite massive to cross. In the south, you said it's an elevated highway, so that's a little easier, but underneath it's often not very attractive either. So I think if you design this as a place for the neighborhood, the access, the way you connect is extremely important. And showing this how you I mean, even if it's little, but those connections have to be paid attention to, so that it's inviting and safe and connecting. Or do you have any documents that shows those connections?
Show of the connection.
You need to be on a later stage, so that we see how it will look after your design is implemented, not on a kind of conceptual level, so that we understand the need or your intention to connect, but we somehow lack the proof, or we lack the understanding how this will happen. It's at the end still a public area that you create here. And so it's not just going home to a home, but it's for a whole lot of people every day and coming from the neighborhood. Okay, just a thought.
Sorry, you can ask me again.
I guess we run out of time.
Okay.
Yes, the time is up already. It's a little too long, but it's fine. So thank you very much once again, Nisha, and for the jurors who has commented on her work. Now we can continue to the next contestant, which is Anusri Joshi from India. Yes.
Is my screen visible?
Yes, it is visible clearly.
Hi, I'm Anushri from India. I'll start my presentation. Wait, I'll have to start again because I'll have to share my computer audio.
The timer will start whenever you're ready.
Sure, thank you. The city link Kochi. Is it audible?
Yes, yes.
Resources, ideas, power, and people. Kochi is a city with rich cultural heritage, having been an ancient flourishing port. It is located on the southwestern coast of India and has a tropical climate with heavy monsoons. It is among the first 20 cities selected under the Smart Cities mission of the Government of India under one of the 4 themes decided as part of its vision is an inclusive and smartly governed city, where the goal is of creating a formal network with NGOs, seamless government-citizen interface, e-governance, etc. The city is gearing up to imagine its future with initiatives like the Anti-Kochi competition being held by the Kochi Municipal Corporation that involves contribution from both professionals and citizens. In this context, the program given was that of a city observatory that houses spaces for the newer functions, that is, e-governance offices and public outreach programs. The site sits adjacent to the Mulashiri Canal and is well connected to the rest of the city, surrounded by a mixed land use of educational, residential, religious, and commercial spaces. How do we intervene in a region with strong cultural sense? How do we link the traditional and the contemporary and make it relevant for the future? As a method of approach for the various layers that go into designing of a structure, formal and structural expression, program development and spatial hierarchy, materiality and sustainability, and the intimate scale of intangible experiences, I decided to take cues from the existing broader, regional, and immediate context, which I'll be going through in the next slide. As a built form that entails power, I started with my understanding of what a democratic structure should be like, analyzed the usual massing of such structures, wondering if it could be inverted to form a core of people. Then I was looking at the regional scale, the Chinese fishing nets brought in by Chinese traders in the 14th century. I was intrigued by the structure and the mechanism where the forces applied by people get amplified as an interesting metaphor for a democratic setup. Then I was looking at the scale of the domestic in the region, the common recurring elements of the Paddipura veranda, courtyard, which is again a void filled with people, and their spatial hierarchy and the material quality, etc. I was simultaneously making models and sketches based on these ideas of the force transfer metaphor, the core filled with people, etc., and the design started taking shape. The anchoring of the programs. The programs were of broadly 2 types. The e-government function that involved offices, waiting areas, and public outreach, which included multipurpose halls, workshop spaces, NGO spaces, and public info lobby. The info lobby, although very small program, was identified as one with immense potential, as it acts as an interface between the people and the governing system, and acts as the anchor in the force transfer metaphor. This imagined as singular entities situated all along the canal. I wanted the people to penetrate deeper into the site, and hence the public outreach follows the info lobby to the rear. The other programs happen up front. In terms of spatial hierarchy, the structure programmatically and formally starts opening up and getting anchored into the info lobby, with the layers of the offices, the veranda, the courtyard, the info lobby units, and the soft edge. The site circulation is all permeable, as you can see. The upper floors follow a similar pattern. The idea of access and perceived access. To make it more approachable for the people, the entrance is a reflection of the Paddipura. On approaching, one may find people sitting outside, reading, the visible entry into the women's cell drawing in more participation from them, the lowered fenestration of the waiting room giving glimpses of people like you and me. This is the central courtyard that acts as a spillover. The roofscape takes forward the formal side of the force transfer metaphor. Each member of the roof from the info lobby springs up to form larger processes spanning the courtyard and encompasses the rest of the structure. There are multiple such roofscapes that give it a dynamic character. These members are held up by suspension cables which are anchored to a steel mast. This structure is evocative of the fishing net force transfer mechanism. This is a diagram of the spatial hierarchy. This is how the roofscape sits within the context. The detailing out of the roofscape with the terracotta panels being suggested. The people can thus interact with this interesting roof and each other through the formation of internal courtyards. Materiality and spatial experience. The understandings from the domestic were brought in to foster comfortable internal spaces at the intimate scale. The brick jalis, the lowered fenestration that sit along with the RCC framework, along with their energy-saving properties, add to the value of the spatial experience. Thus, ranging from the exterior spaces filled with people to the spatial quality of the intimate to the unique formal expression, the structure evolved from its context not as a reiteration but selectively evocative of the same. The structure thus acts as a link that connects these spaces of the domestic to the democratic institutional through reinterpretation, a link that connects individuals to the city's functioning and also as a link to the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
This is a short 30 seconds video. of the model. Yes, thank you. Sorry for the delay.
Thank you very much. Now we're moving to the Q&A session. Judges, you can ask questions now.
And Joshi, right? Joshi. Okay.
Yeah, that's my surname.
Okay. And I think I like the way you metaphor the mechanism of Chinese fishing net structure to your architecture. And I think I can see from your animation and maybe from this building, there's something going on. But I wish I can see more about how this fishing net structure system react to the needs of your designs, because I can tell I think it's adjustable, right? Is it adjustable? No, it's not.
So the part which is above the courtyard, so that acts like a pergola over it. So it can be covered also. So it is adjustable in that sense.
So it does, or it doesn't. It doesn't adjust.
No, so the rest of the structure is fixed only. So so basically the roof has been divided into these strips. So instead of having like one singular plane, it has been divided into these separate strips, so that even you can, as you can see, like because of the varying forms, interesting light quality can happen because of the way the some of the roofs overlap, or some places there are clerestory windows that are formed. So that can help in get in more light as well.
Okay, so when you mentioned about metaphor of this mechanism of this Chinese fishing net structure, I wish, I mean, it's more like a shape of it, but I wish it could actually adjustable. And you also mentioned about your site has a very hot and humid climate, like a weather condition, right? So I think this might be very interesting if this mechanism can react to the climate. You know, like the real Chinese fishing net is actually adjustable. So I want some part of this fishing net, like I don't know, maybe some part towards to the riverside or to the canal, or to maybe to the more like humid area, or I don't know what's going on for this, because I cannot really see the site plan right now. But I think it definitely should have some reaction, or like something react to the weather condition for sure, and also for the site. If this Chinese fishing net structure can actually moving or adjustable for some part of it, I think that might be very interesting. I don't know. Yeah, it's like a portable car, like racing car, but instead of that, it's like a very interesting mechanic roof structure. Yeah, maybe you can think more about this part.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea.
Joshi, can we see your plan?
Sure.
Ground floor. I agree with the Professor Lee that the referring to the old industry of fishing and the metaphor, and the like the waving the roof will be very interesting. And also that like intermediate space with the in between space, it should look very attractive. But I was wondering that these kind of rigid rectangular plans are existing, or you plan newly?
Sorry, which one?
It's all these
The one along the
your
canal?
design. No,
Yeah.
these big boxes. You design, right?
These ones on the left.
All these are the new ones.
Yeah, so this L-shaped plan.
Yeah. But I don't know why, the roof is really like a flexible feeling, but your plan is very, very rigid, And
So
the contrast is a bit too strong. And also we have more, cutting roof. So how does the wind or light comes in, we're expecting the effect of the roof, but the plan looks a bit too rigid. How do you think?
Okay, so so the first thing is basically the plan actually, even though it looks like blocks right now, but
Yeah.
the way it is designed, so if you look at the massing concept, it actually starts opening up as you go towards the courtyard. So if you see, like, these are the offices which happen along the edges,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then it's more like a veranda which runs along it. So it's not that there are rigid walls which are happening along the courtyard. So the interface between the structure and the courtyard is actually open. So as you move ahead, it's almost like the structure is opening up, and then you have the courtyard which is happening, which is followed by the layer of the info lobby units, which are singular entities which are sitting along the canal. So that is
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
And
As an architecture planning, very rational. We can see the cores and everything, but
Yeah.
sometimes it should correspond to the more structure or roof system or something.
Yes. So so the interaction with the roof. So within the structure also, in the upper floor plans, if you see, so the similar strategy of creating the courtyards has been followed. So even inside the structure, it's not as if it's like one singular chunk, but actually there are voids within the structure itself, as you can see over here. So that's how the people,
Okay.
even on the ground floor, can
We
actually
could- we
see the
couldn't-
dynamic structure of the roof.
We couldn't
So-
catch your openings on the second and third floor.
Yes.
Okay.
So
Okay.
wait, there's a
Thank
view
you.
that I have. I'll just show that. Yeah, so you can see it over here also. So
Yeah,
there
yeah,
are
yeah,
like these
yeah.
double light, triple light spaces, so
Okay.
that there's vertical connection also.
Other judges, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I think the metaphor of a Chinese net is not only structural, but in a sense that the people's effort get amplified. That is what she
Right.
actually meant. And this is supposed to be a city center where people gather. And I think the metaphor refers more to amplification of their efforts rather than direct implementation of the structural technique of Chinese nets.
Yes. So I didn't want to exactly. Sorry, what are you saying?
No, that is what I could interpret your
Yeah.
concept.
So I didn't want to exactly copy, like make copies of the Chinese fishing nets and say that that is my structure. But more than so there's the structural element, but in the structural element, I was observing the way the forces get transferred. And the main metaphor was not just copying that object as such, but the main metaphor was understanding the forces and then relating those with the system of a democracy, where there are these singular ropes, that is singular entities, which I relate to as the people, individual people, and then the collective effort of those people actually gets amplified to get the catch. So even in this, through the section as well, what I'm trying to do is that the individual so the info lobby has been imagined in the metaphor as the individual forces, because that's the place where the common people are going to come, and that's where they're going to get exposed to the various public policies which will be getting planned in the main structure over here. So from there, these forces actually, that's the metaphor, that's how these forces actually get transferred to encompass the rest of the structure. So yeah, that's that.
In your lower section, there is a steel mast in the steel mast with tension cables and all. What
Right.
it is only holding up
It is yes, it is a structural element, but also it helps to create that evocation of the fishing net as well. So I didn't want, so it is a structural element because I didn't want any columns to be present in the courtyard, because I wanted the courtyard to be a one free open ground plane. So the processes which go over the courtyard are held up by the steel mast. And again, that is, so the entire form again becomes evocative of the structure.
I think the idea of that fishing net or that mechanism and so is beautiful, but I think it's almost a bit forced onto your project. When you look at your floor plan on your master plan, the front buildings, this kind of opening the whole area to that canal and creating that beautiful inner court reminds me a little bit of how to deal when you have an old heritage building here along the canal, for instance, and you have to add a huge volume that is in no proportion, and you try to create scale and connection. So that's, in a sense, beautifully done. But right now I understand it's all new. But the roof that goes over it from the model, when you look from above, it's somehow very interesting. It reminds of like row houses in an old town where every land was sold in slices. But somehow I still feel that the roof, despite the interest in it, it's a little forced onto the rest because you have a lot of other qualities here in your project. So, but that's maybe maybe also a formal matter of formality, but really maybe even a matter whether this whole roof idea is actually at the end not even so crucial anymore. Of course, providing protection from the monsoon rain, from the sun as well, from heat, letting a lot of air still passing through easily, that it's all still important, but the exact shape is an extreme act.
Oh, okay. So actually, yeah, there were other reasons also. So since it is a structure that entails power, so that was since it is a structure that entails power, so that was also another reason to go ahead with that bold act of having the roof the way it is. And also the other structures in the context also have sloping roofs and pitched roofs, but it is a different take on the same.
Thank you.
Yeah, we have maybe same opinion about your work. So the space between the big building and the small building is so nice, and also the roof shape is also so nice. But the left side of the big building is we thought it's an old building, you know.
Oh, sorry. That's it's not. Oh, sorry, I couldn't get what you said. Like the old building as in something that I have designed only.
So I think is the show me some elevation, so it's not so good compared to the another the parts of design. Yeah, this side is okay. Yeah. This elevation is not so good. Compared to the another the space between the small building and big building and the roof shape is so nice. But we don't agree your elevation design and so did you have another idea for the building? No.
Not exactly. So my concept was actually going. So there were multiple ideas that I was working with for the concept as a show. So all those were actually developing simultaneously. So I was intrigued by so Chinese fishing nets is something which is very unique to Kochi, and then there was this idea of the core filled with people, which is reflected through the courtyard, which is there at the center. So that was what that came from my understanding of democracy. And then there was this intimate spaces which are taken from the traditional domestic architecture of Kochi. So the entrance, then the veranda, then the courtyard also. So all these spaces were kind of recreated or integrated into the newer design as well. So these were some basic. So all these ideas were actually developing simultaneously.
In your the big mass in the left compared to the smaller one along the river, there are regular 3 stories. But yes, but what will happen in the upper floor? Because in between your slope roof, quite huge slope roof with the third slab, there are still quite high space. What's that? What happened there? It's just a structure space, or there are some special intention?
Wait, I'll go back to the sections. Yeah, so you're talking about this space in between?
No, you
Like
can
the-
see in your section. In the section, yes. What will happen in the upper? Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, so till here it's the
Maybe
normal
another
height.
one will be, yeah, even more.
This one? Yeah, so it basically helps getting in more light. So what happens is that you can also see the profile of the other roof which is going in. So the space in between actually becomes like a clerestory window that helps get in filtered light inside. So it becomes like almost like a double light space.
There's a
above.
glass there. Yeah, there are glasses there in the
So it's
elevator.
a steel, it's a totally a steel system.
Is there glass? Because we imagine if you have a monsoon rain, it's like a torrential rain. So if it's void,
So okay,
all the water
between the spaces, okay, so it's glass only. So it is a covered space between the two roofs. Is that what you're asking? Sorry.
How about the cross ventilation? Are you using it for cross ventilation to reduce the heat during the summer?
Okay, so the cross ventilation basically happens through the brick jallies, which are here, while the roof helps in letting it more ample sunlight to enter, but also it is not direct sunlight because of the roof overhangs. It will be better shaded, but it helps in getting in more light. But the main ventilation is happening through the brickwork. So so the jallies basically there are voids within the wall itself in the brickwork, which creates a pattern or a design, but also helps in letting in cool air, and lets the hot air go out. So that's how the cross ventilation basically happens.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for the presentation, Josie. Now we are moving on to the next presenter, who is Ryan Kwak Wen Hao from Singapore.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Let me share my screen. Can you see the screen?
Yeah, sure.
Yes. Okay, so I will start my presentation. Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Ryan from the National University of Singapore. So before I actually start talking about my project, I'll talk slightly more about the brief. So the brief of this project is actually a theoretical exploration primarily through Stan Allen's reading of weak architecture and field condition, in which Brunswick Stan's point for the new Athens Charter is actually used as the framework for the design. And here the intervention actually focuses on creating a high-tech favela through weak architecture. So to break down the term weak architecture, I define it as not as any particular product, technology, but actually as a vision of which all technologies attempts to achieve to become collaborative, versatile, and sustainable. And in terms of favela, it acts as a field conditions and not as an architectural typology, but more as a situation, context, process of development, and which is summarized in this notion of creating a bottom-up approach, having negotiation and dialogue, being non-hierarchy, having some sort of sequence and be available for constant change. So the site is actually located in an industrial estate sandwiched in 4 different axes, and in which if you don't have a purpose to go to an industrial estate, you won't go to an industrial estate. So you have this very transitional feeling on it. So study on circulation was also conducted to understand the permeability and porosity on the entire site, to understand how this industrial estate will act in different circumstances. And the study actually helps to tackle the hostile morphology that was on site. And what I did what the key interventions that I did was actually remove all physical buildings and all boundaries, keeping only the structural columns. 6 filters were then generated autonomously with its own logic and intention to create surfaces, pathway, entrances, green spaces, and keeping the columns. These 6 filters are actually assembled all together without a synthesis of a higher order, and it is important for me to state that they are not integrated together, but just being superimposed on top of each other. And it is in this lack of collective resolution that will create a different feel of intensity and negotiation on the different filters. And this composed all together, this is actually a master plan that was actually envisioned with its favela-like manifestation on the right. The existing tenants in the industrial estate is actually forcefully located within prescriptive boundaries and operated singularly. So here I actually imagine the tenant's operation to be actually decentralized around to set up individual processors and locate individual processors where it's best suited for their needs. And as time goes by, this will actually result in self-clustering, specialization, or even some further growth of its own type. And the 2 key programs that actually happens on sites is actually production and consumption. And in summary, this is the systems of relations and flow that will happen on site, where the material, production, and consumers co-interact with one another in different cycles and ways, constituting to the idea of an industrial agora. So once the imagined system has been actually set up, the questions comes into mind. How do I actually give agency and growth and control to the occupants? In which I propose through the use of columns as ownership rather than land, shifting prescription spaces to unrestricted spaces, allowing for organic growth and informal negotiation to happen. So conventionally, our design, a lot of architecture is actually being limited by the physicality of land. And what if spatial development is no longer being controlled, but just so enough to actually mark a spot of identity? And columns ownership will redefine how spatial and field negotiations will actually be determined through a bottom-up approach. So this slide actually ideates spatial creations connections just through using columns. So with 1 column, you may be able to create a tree house, 2 columns, a corridor, 4 columns, you will have a room. But what if all the columns is actually located differently in different positions? And this is where the contestations of spaces will happen, such as through a space of height, directions, quantity, and also disruption in continuum. So in a very bite-sized scenario, where different columns are actually owned by different tenants, the space actually palimpsests onto one another across time, resulting acts of entanglement, disruptions, and different skewing of actions. So the question here lies in how would different occupants actually negotiate for spatial qualities with their own needs and their own column ownership? Applying this thesis to my side, I imagine a scene of temperamental growth and negotiation between tenants. And this is actually 9 episodes that were actually set up to show how it actually develops across different time, from the removal of existing structures, providing affordances, and the different contestation and battles that actually happens to the adoption of buy spaces. And this is a summary of how the whole scenario, a scene that I envisioned would occur, relate back to the master plan that I had created. And this Exploded Exo showcases 20 different tenants that actually contest within the limited of spaces across different periods of time.
I'm sorry, for Ryan, your time is up for your presentation.
Okay, then I'll just run through my slides.
Yeah, you can run through your slides, yeah.
So actually, this is the model and the video. Not sure if I can play this. Yep. Yep, and with that, I thank you. Yep.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ryan. Now to the judges, you can have 10 minutes to discuss and to ask questions to Ryan about the project that just been presented. time starts now, please.
I think it's quite interesting kind of game of thinking, assuming that each columns has occupied by owned by a different entity, and they negotiate the building's shape and everything. But if the assumption are changed, like okay, the owner can exchange the poles, so one can collect all the columns into one zone. It's something like the same idea of land ownership. How does it happen?
Yeah, so so in this project, because it was the project actually wants us to create through with architecture, so we couldn't use any formal existing solution that's already available. So I thought that if the idea was allowing to give flexibility for people to create any space that they want in but still being controlled. So the columns that was designed was actually was not sure if you can see here, was actually given split into every meter. So it's so that wherever they want to build something, they can actually just latch onto it, and that's somehow being controlled. And because of the sheer reality of materials, structures, this column cannot be fully utilized, because a structure cannot take its load because it's already old.
So your assumption is these columns are owned by private sectors, but that they can let the others use as
yes, correct. They can share the column if they wanted to.
Okay.
Yeah, Rian,
yes.
It's an interesting concept that you have. I noted that you have 3 keywords here. That is contestation, negotiation, and favela. Yeah. So why are those 3 concepts? Why do you choose those 3 concepts? Is it have context with the city, that the site that you choose, or is the people or the community there has already have a contestation? Because in urban, contestation is a very urban problem, like urban space problem, right?
Yeah.
So what did you create the contestation, or did you catch the contestation in the surrounding community?
In this project, the approach was a little bit different than a typical one, was that we were actually told what we wanted to achieve, which was to create a favela. So then, so it wasn't because I studied something, that's why I needed to create a favela on site, but it's that because we were told that we need to create a favela, and hence we actually went to study a lot of readings on what actually makes a favela. So a favela is to create a favela is primarily essentially bottom up, where each individual user is actually given the autonomy to construct what they want. That's why in Rio favela or the Kowloon Walled City, they actually start to stack on top of each other. So in this way, when we actually relate back on site, there was a sense of favela-like morphology that was actually happening, which was actually boxes start to appear in a very non-grid manner. And that's where I thought I could actually start to leech on this idea where they actually start to build on themselves, the capability of them building things themselves onto my intervention. Hence, I created the columns as affordance, where they can actually start to use the columns to somehow create their own spaces through different ownership of columns.
Okay, so the negotiation is between, in your case, is between people's needs. Okay, thank you.
Oops.
How do you control in your concept what is happening on the ground? Because you have all these initial studies and the ground floor could not be totally randomly filled. Otherwise, you will have a problem of blockage, I guess, access and so on. How do you regulate the development on your ground level?
That's actually a very interesting question, because I actually had this issue when I was actually designing this. So the idea was that that's why this project is actually called a scene of temperamental growth and negotiation, because a lot of the battles that actually happens within each users is actually negotiated based on the conditions and the context that comes before it. So let me show you. So here is 6 different floor plans of different tenants in different episodes, where this actually comes in at the start, and after that being built on top of the new tenants starts to build on top. So for example, this tenants that was actually over here, because of these 2 chimneys that's actually built before him, so he couldn't build this straight layout that he wanted. So he has to start skirting around to connect to his next column that's available. So this is a very formal way of contestation, but there's also a very informal way of contestation where negotiation that actually happens is where the building is actually being built, but then the building is being built, but because of his needs, he actually has to expand beyond his own spaces and start leaching on another people's roof or floor slabs to actually expand his floor space without actually constructing more. So the control here is pretty much independent and autonomous by the users with how they negotiate with their neighbors, rather than a top-down figure to say you can do this and you cannot do this. Yeah.
What, in your opinion, are the advantages from this favela approach? I mean, just from construction costs, this is generally higher than something more compact or something more regularly planned. And in terms of energy consumption for air conditioning, you have probably much more surface this way, I would assume. It is definitely more colorful or more lively, but what are, in your view, the big advantages of this approach of planning or developing this area?
I believe this favela-like approach is actually a challenge to how architects actually perceive what the role of an architect is where we actually have to determine everything. But what if we give up that power to the people to design and build what they want? And I thought that's actually the best part on this scheme of design. Yeah. By doing so, we are also giving up the authority to control, let's say, energy consumption, air conditioning and stuff. But I think that is something that I'm willing to give up, to just give authority to the people to actually construct what they desire is best for their needs.
So in that regard, back to the basics, where the owners have no cash for designers and just build with whatever they find. Because hiring here a designer for every part will make it more expensive than letting a developer do something over the whole area. But letting people do it, I mean, that means all the skills you have acquired, you don't believe in it, in a sense, right?
Yeah, that's why
Not
this
necessary
this
for a better scheme.
project, sorry, that's why this project's brief was actually very challenging for bachelor students, right at the start, where they say that we are supposed to use weakness as an urban strategy, where a lot of our skill sets are actually very strong with precise backings. That's why, yeah.
I like that thinking a lot. It's just
Yeah, may I add something here and contextualize these kind of projects within the context of NUS? Yeah. I think we tend to have a very harsh reaction to the kind of administered, top-down bureaucratic environments in which we find most of our work life and recreational experiences. I think student project go on this deep end because they think that one way to inject life into this otherwise regimented context is to free everything. And of course, in the process, they talk themselves out of a profession, because we really don't need architects for this to happen. Like you say, Martin, I think clearly, we sometimes tend to over-romanticize what we think or we believe is the favela, because within the favela, as Lisa Petty talks about in Studies of Slums, they're highly organic, and there's all kinds of really hardcore capitalist negotiation that goes on. Not this kind of situation where you say, I give you this and you give me that. Everything is done with very clear, cutthroat decisions. So I have to say that I think this is one of our responsibilities also as teachers, to inculcate, I would say reality check, but at least to render to our students understanding why it is necessary to have orders in places and where there is opportunities to create this kind of affordances and open-endedness the student talks about. I think this is extremely important. I think this project for me shows that, I'm sorry, I don't teach this particular class, but I'm reacting in context so that general people who see these projects understand where it's coming from. But I think it was from the sound of it, it's a good sort of learning project for Ryan, I think.
Yeah, I'm quite appreciate your how to say, your imagination and also your brief to make such kind of quite interesting project. And also, I think the approach of this bottom up, which people are who owns the column and the space around the column, to define their own spaces is really quite interesting test. I think it's I just curious that how about the so-called public space, the space in between this individual space? How to define that one? Are there also have some principle to there, or the people, the ownership can have some principle to negotiate for that one? Since I think it's not a self-generated slum, even the form looks like, but it's still a design actually. So there might be some underneath principle for such kind of this public space, especially this ground space, which will connect to the city, and also this vertical in this shared space or this common space. I'm just curious about that.
So, public space comes from the way comes when people and the users actually needs it. So, for example, we don't need public space at home, and we only need public space where there's a reason to congregate or to consume activities as a social being. So at this point where the design was where the scenario was actually set up, a few areas was actually established of being driven by the needs of the users to create social space, was to use by spaces, which are spaces that are created, that are created without that unintentionally was created. So for example, the staircase actually leads up to the roof, where the roof, in this case, the roof of this tenant is not supposed to be used as a social space, but because people need a public space, that's why they started to congregate them and somehow adopt them as a space of their for social activities.
Yeah. So yes, I do like your typological study of the columns, the space with the column. Maybe I think you must have also the consideration of this public space. But if you can share more a little bit more about this typological study on the public space, on the common space, it might be more convincing. Yeah. Convinced, yes. Thank you.
Ryan, would it not be more consistent if you would only be the one laying out all the rules after all your thinking, and let the third parties, those that actually you envision to do it in the future, I mean those, just some assumed third parties make all the decisions, because right now we look at something that is still designed by the designer, even though you lay it out as it will be designed by the non-designers in a sense, or leaving it up to every owner, tenant.
I would say the system that was, I'm very glad you brought up the point of having a system, because this entire scenario was actually based on the system, which was the 6 filters that I created right at the start, which was to provide different fields of intensity, fields of different kinds of needs. That's why I specifically stated that they are not integrated but just superimposed, but because of this lack of resolution, different spaces would have different pros and cons everywhere. So that somehow is a very weak system to say that the unfortunately the architect need don't determine where is the best place, but it's because of the user's needs they are able to dig and find out, do their own site analysis and find out where's their best place, and hence they actually start to build it. And in terms of this architecture manifestation, the most systematic approach that I can do was to use the columns to create the columns, to design the columns as devices for them to construct on.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So I think that is all for the Q&A session. Thank you very much for Ryan and for the tutors that has commented on his work. So now we move on to the next participant, which is Takemoto Mayu-san.
Hello. My project connection is okay?
Yep, we can all see your project, please.
Thank you. Hi everyone, my name is Mayu Takemoto. I'm from Kyoto Institute of Technology. Now let me begin. Under the roof of the passage, each value of the old and the new buildings are clearer. This project will renovate an old school building into a media and community center by installing the passage. There is a closed elementary school, Taiken Elementary School, built in Kyoto in 1939. This site faces Maruta and Inokuma Street, so the northeast corner of building is where it is often seen by people. This is the original school building. It has a unique design that is a mixture of Art Deco and modernism designs. I think this original outer wall has especially worth to be saved, so I propose to install the passage into the media center in order to provide people with an opportunity to see this outer historic wall while they go through the passage. The original building was an elementary school, so it is close to the city for the safety of the children. On the other hand, media and community center need to be open to the city. So I installed the passage and entrance that a passerby can find it easily. Make it easy for everyone to gather at the media center. This is the concept. Extract the elements of storability from the passage in Paris. I referred to the passage in Paris. I designed in 4 steps. The first step is contrast between the old and the new. The second step is penetration of the main passage. The third step is quietness depending on the story. The fourth step is much of gradient of roof. This building faces the main street. The roof of the passage extends to the street. When passersby find it, they would like to go down this passage street. There are 5 main types of historical materials, so I think there are 5 types of media. In the same way, media center should be composed of 5 fields of media. In this time, I consider receiving information and creating information separately. Then, in the original building, we can learn from historical sources. In the new building, we can use and create present information. The passage connects the old and the new, and 5 types of media. People will surely walk around more fields and find new interests. This is the first ground. On the second floor, we can learn about each field more details. On the third floor, there is a little quiet because there is above the roof of the passage. When people want to study and use meeting room, they can use the third floor. The top is main building. That was the original building. I designed some renovation, like setting back the wall and extending the stairs. The bottom is annex building. That is renovated part. This is sectional perspective from the west. This is south section of the passage. I arranged the original outer wall in order to open the passage. And this is the west elevation of the passage. The roof of the original school gym is gable roof, so the roof of the passage equalizes the gradient. The passage connects the original and the new building, and each 5 types of field, and it contrasts difference between the original and the new. And people can surely find the goodness of the old and the new. This is my video.
Thank you very much, Mayu, for the presentation. Now we are moving on to the Q&A session. Judges, you may ask questions.
Thank you for your attention.
I have a question about your media center. It seems like usually when we mention about media center, it's something more like a very digital type of media center. But when I read through your slides, you actually talk about the media as like literature and maybe like drawings and that kind of media. So that's my first question. So could you declare what kind of media center you are actually talking about, so we can have more like we understand what kind of function it is. And second question is about the passageway. I think you are very you think this passageway is seems like very important to your project, and you mentioned about this passageways many times. But then when I see the animation or the slides you proposed, I don't really understand the importance of this passageway. So could you describe more about how it connects old and new, and like how come this is so important to your project? Or maybe I misunderstood about the passageway, the meaning or the purpose of it, but I want to know more about it. And third question is about the users. I'm not really sure about who the users is, because it seems like it's like a learning center is open for the public, for the community. But then you mentioned about close, you want to close it and for security and all that. So maybe you can talk a little bit more about that too. Thank you.
Okay. First function. I think 5 types of video: audio, literature, drawing, molding, folklore, and in the new building. For example, students gallery and making video and
Okay, I get it, because it was kind of hard to follow your presentation, but now I get it. It's like a new media, and so you are actually talking about new media and the like book media. Okay, that's good. Okay, so go to the second question.
Question. Okay, why the passage so important?
Because it seems like just like a normal passageway in the drawings, so that's why I want to know more about it.
Okay. Here is a passage in Paris. I think this is beautiful proportion, and passage in Paris. And when go through the passage, I can't see the door.
The facade? Do you mean the passage as a facade?
No, very
the front face of the building is the passage. The passage.
No, I think she was talking about this passageway between the new buildings, right?
Yeah.
So that's why I cannot really tell why it's so important.
Yeah, and my interpretation from her presentation is like she want to make a next building, and the facade is the passage.
Oh.
I think that's what she meant. Is it, Mayu?
Okay.
Do you mean the passage became the front face of the building?
No, it's a cover.
No?
Roof.
Or the roof?
Yeah, yeah. In France, it's passage, and in English, it's paysage, or like that, the pronunciation.
Ah, okay. Passage, space, a wall, and I mean wall and roof.
And the roof. Yeah.
Also, same.
いや、さっきあれやね、パッサージュをなぜ取り入れたかという話で、単なるこう屋根をかけたんじゃなくて、他にもなんか特徴があるっていうのをさっき言ったんじゃん。それだったらいいの。
英語で説明できるかわからないんですけど。
まあ、頑張って。try it in English.
I try to speak English. Of course, the roof. I installed the roof and the wall. The pile of roof, a pile of wall.
Maybe you can show us like a section drawings. Do you have a section drawings to talk about this part?
I think what could have been the internal passage of the added building in the front now has become an external passage given to the society to pass through and connect these buildings together in some kind of a secure atmosphere. So you take the passage which would otherwise have been used only in one building, bring it out and give it to the society. I think that is in my opinion, what she has achieved very cleverly.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
Yeah, actually, that was just I'm just want to know more about why other than that why like this is so important, because she's intend to say something about this actually she mentioned about this passage so many times, and I thought there's something more than like this part, so that's why I'm waiting for the answer. Don't worry, no problem.
The problem in communication.
I think storability of passage is much for media center, because media center has many fields of media, and it is, and because of this, passengers can enjoy to walk.すみません、どういった質問でしたか?
Okay, so is that all, Mayusan?
Okay.
Hi. Thank you very much for the presentation. Do you want to try answering the question again?
Okay, thank you.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. So you still have time, but then we can just move on.
Sorry.
Yes.
Matthew, give me 1 minute.
No, it's okay. Yes, we still have time. Dr. Leon.
Yeah. And so she's trying to explain.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, she's trying to explain, but she's having a hard time.
And I know you want to help her.
今の質問はだからこのあなたの作品にとってこのパッサージュが非常に重要なことなので、このパッサージュをなぜ取り入れたかっていう話と、この新旧の建物をつなぎ方が 어떨까? 뒤에 하나씩 어떨까?
サイズを取り入れたのが
It's okay, don't worry. I think you already answered the question, so it's good. Thank you.
It's good, Mayu. Don't worry. I think your slide is already
Old building and new buildings.
Drawing the sections tells everything. Don't worry.
I learn English. But
Okay, learn more English. Okay. Okay, thank you.
otherwise,
Okay, so we already listened to all the presentations from all the contestants here because, yes,
Okay, so last but not least, we still
we have
have
one more.
last
Oh, I'm
contestant.
so sorry. We still have one more.
Singaporean.
Yeah, Darian
We
Wu
still have one
from
more.
Singapore.
Yeah, hi, hello.
Oh, I'm so sorry,
Sunshine.
Terry.
No
I
worries.
missed
It's
your
okay.
name in the slide. Yeah.
Can you guys see the slides? Are you
Yes.
able to see
Yes.
slides? Okay, then I'll start sharing. Okay, so good evening, everybody. My name is Darian from the National University of Singapore, and I'll be sharing my project called Produce. So my project aims to meet the rising technological demands and prevalence of cryptocurrency in our society, and Produce aims to transform existing buildings of the industrial estate into this self-sustainable crypto facility. So to give you some context, this is Singapore. The project site is actually located in that pocket that's highlighted in this Paya Lebar airbase of Singapore, and it's actually located in this area demarcated by the red line. And this is this industrial estate, which the site will be where the project happens. So for our studio, we did the site analysis as a studio of 12 people, where we studied every possible information available of the industrial estate, from studying the terrain, the different infrastructure, and how the different networks between this industrial estate, as well as the different land users next to the airbase, the figure ground, and the different levels of privacy and the type of landlords between these industrial estates, as well as the different building types and how it evolved over time from 60s to the present day. And then this is the urban section that we did as a studio to illustrate how these many different industrial factories that came up over time, like kind of overshadow each other based on the different sizes and the different types. So what we did as a studio was that similar to Ryan, we had to analyze this industrial estate to the competition proposals that occurred for this Paya Lebar airbase. And on the left is the existing condition, and on the right is actually the studied master plan for this airbase. And you can see how the contrast between these master plans is actually how currently the industrial estate is being removed and replaced with new things, while the future master plan that won the competition actually suggested that we should not replace it entirely, but let us develop these estates from a very much bottom-up approach. So there's this situation, there was this argument between the two of what's happening and what's proposed in this competition. So from there, this creates this paradox, because this what's happening and what we suggest is conflicting with each other. So then I'll move on into how Singapore has this new trend for technology called blockchain, where it's cryptocurrency, and it's very much the new trend in the entire world, where cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, NFT, digital art is replacing becoming our everyday part of our society. And Singapore has a sustainable vision where we want to use almost half of our entire energy to be from solar power. So all these different factors actually line up with the trend for cryptocurrency, because cryptocurrency uses a lot of energy, and there's this need for this sustainable solution for that. So these are like some studies about how much solar panels we would need if it was to use in the site. So similarly, we were tasked to use weakness as architecture to develop a solution. And these were some of the readings that we had to do. And these were some readings that spoke out to me. And I tried to use these different readings to develop this framework that would aid my design for this urban strategy to tackle the site. So the first strategy is to create this idea of an event where culture of these different trends and so-called problems are kind of overlapping to create this new culture, to be used to create this new culture. Yeah, then the idea of using a very weak connection, the idea of a shortcut that is a not undefined and unclear connection between to form a so-called like a massive network link over time from a very small to a large scale. Then the programs of creating a new layer program to create this sustainable favela for cryptocurrency will actually form this shortcut that we develop from a bottom up to an urban scale. So this is the existing site where we did the shortcut mapping. And yeah, these are some photos. And then the idea was to convert existing buildings into this new high-tech facility through these shortcuts. Yeah, I'll just skim through the rest of the slides. So mainly it's just to convert, instead of replacing the existing, but we actually make use of the existing to create this new future facility for recycling, generating power, and having this platform for future developments. And then this is just a ground floor plan to show this idea of fragmentation of this architectural space, to show how the favela can grow out of this very rigid existing architecture. And these are just some visuals. Yeah, I'll just skim through. Sorry.
Yeah, just gonna finish the slides really quick.
Yeah, then I'll just play the video. Yep, then with that, I end my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Darian. I apologize for the early mishap. Now we continue to the Q&A session for 10 minutes. The judges can comment and talk about the work for 10 minutes. The time starts now.
As I understand it, you have after your initial survey, you have grouped certain buildings together, removed the existing walls, etc., kept the structures together, and then planned a new series of production cycle.
Yes, yeah, I kept the existing buildings, but I altered their so-called internal organization of spaces for this new facility, this new high-tech facility of recycling and crypto mining.
So you keep the structure intact.
Yeah.
Remove the rest of the layers of whatever walls and flooring, etc. And then redesign it for the new facility. That is what the basic scheme is, no?
Yeah.
Okay. And in the process, the roof is also redesigned, keeping the structure intact. The roof is provided with some solar generation panels and all.
Yeah, actually, the solar panel generation is actually an additional layer of roofs while keeping the existing roof intact as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other comments or questions from the judges, jurors?
So if you say you would keep the structure but not the building, not the envelope, how is it working that the old structure would, I mean, just take the new loads when the new building is a different has a different geometry?
I think what I meant by keeping the existing structures still function to maintain the existing load. While there's the new canopy that's added is this secondary layer of structures that provide the so-called the loading support for the new developments to occur. So besides just being a shelter and an energy farm, it provides a structural platform for so-called these shortcuts to so-called suspend from these canopies. So that does not add on, it does not create additional load to the existing structure.
And I mean, I know that the old concept of reusing old buildings for a new purpose, repurposing it, maybe is definitely not new. It's 40 years old. I mean, historically much older, but as a trend, maybe 40 years old or so or more. But now, what is the advantage from this approach to the reuse of the existing building and just modifying it as and where necessary?
I think the advantage for this, the main reason why the structure was actually kept kept almost in its entirety is based on how I wanted to use the existing owners of the buildings. I wanted them to transition into this phase where instead of them being chased out from their buildings and the buildings being demolished, I wanted them to so-called grow and be so-called future ready, to be future proof in a sense. Therefore, the existing structures are being kept in a way to show the idea of growth.
So to carry this question forward, initially there were, let us say, 4 different owners. Now they form a collective, become one a collective owner, so that you are able to connect all these 4 different buildings and do whatever further renovations you want. Because unless there is a collective ownership, this is not possible.
I understand that, but I guess the way I developed my so-called this system idea is where potentially these different owners could collaborate instead of being one collective owner.
Yeah. So they collaborate, they become a collective owner, because instead of demolishing the existing whatever setup, I think it becomes a wise idea, so that you also reduce the you don't waste your energy and money in demolition and rebuilding, but use the recycling principles. So that is also possible. But in the whole process about the envelope of the new walls, what is the strategy?
I think the strategy that I adopted was actually the idea of fragmentation that I developed from the reading. So the idea of fragmentation actually creates this new layer of interest in the space, because previously everything was very rectangular, very box-like environment. So the way of removing the walls and creating openings was through this idea of fragmentation, where I tried to see how, because my weakness strategy is actually based on shortcuts, and shortcuts generally the so-called slice through the spaces, they cut through the buildings. So it's through there where I tried to use that idea of shortcuts and fragmentation to open and remove the walls, and even like allow for programs to spill out from the existing envelope.
I do appreciate your project, but maybe not only for the design itself, it's for the way of your this procedure of research. I think it's really a design based on the reading and research. You take some keywords, key ideas to organize this, to transform this existing site or some buildings. Maybe we just need some time to read more carefully and to make a better understanding of the on the architecture level, on the space, on the architecture, the quality. So since it's quite complicated a whole, so and also with quite a lot layers of information, so maybe we just need some time to understand better. But I think personally I like this way to do the project. So maybe you can show some picture, some scenery, yes, maybe to make it more meaningful, not only just show the image. If this image can explain better about on the architecture design sense, it's not theoretical.
So what is 34? What is slide 34 about, Darren? Maybe tell us a little bit more. I see some kind of assembly, what's going on here?
Yeah, so for slide 34 is actually the crypto mining rigs, where like the equipment for crypto mining is.
Yeah, that's 35 and 36.
Yeah, then for 35 is actually like this, because I spoke about how I wanted to introduce these new programs as an idea of like an event. So like this slide 35 is actually this event space where you can see like all the different programs happening at one time, like the digital art being displayed for sale, the recycling parts being transported here and there. So this picture just to show that the idea of an event in our culture. Then the subsequent slide 36 actually just to show that the recycling facility, to show like how maybe you can encourage recycling by telling people that they can earn cryptocurrency if they so-called develop this habit of recycling to earn money as an income. So it's like this new job creation for the locals through this recycling facility. The 37 is just like the research studio. There's like this very flexible space where human and machine can conduct their work.
I think that is all for the Q&A session for Darian. So thank you very much for the presentation and for the tutors and the judges who has commented on the work. So we've actually now listened to every single presentation from every single contestant here. And before we go on to the judging session, which we all been waiting for, we will have a short 10-minute break. And now the clock shows 4:55, so we will start at 5:05 p.m. Jakarta time. So before we go to the short break, we have another video from our last sponsor for this event. Enjoy.
Menikmati kebersamaan bersama keluarga tercinta adalah kebahagiaan utama, dan masa pandemi ini menyadarkan kita pentingnya kesehatan dan perlindungan maksimal untuk mereka tanpa rasa khawatir dari virus dan bakteri. Memperkenalkan baru Roman Granite Fitmooth Antibakterial dengan terobosan baru permukaan glasur silver ion teknologi. Telah teruji di laboratorium Anaico Malaga, Spain. Terbukti dapat mengeliminasi sampai dengan 99,9% virus dan bakteri, menjadikan seluruh ruangan di rumah Anda higienis, bersih, dan bebas bau. Perawatan yang mudah, sempurna digunakan untuk hunian keluarga dan bangunan fasilitas publik. Begitu banyak manfaat yang bisa Anda dapatkan dari Roman Granite Fitmooth Antibakterial. Dengan pilihan desain yang beragam, iceberg white yang elegan, decalcid bone yang modern, The Zervinia mempercantik rumah klasik Anda, The Calmar mewah khas Italia, The Visby memperkuat gaya kontemporer rumah Anda, dan The Linosa untuk gaya minimalis. Ayo, ciptakan gaya hidup sehat bersama keluarga dengan Roman Granite Fitmooth Antibakterial. Perfect surface, perfect look, perfect body.
So you just witnessed a video from our sponsor, Roman. Now enjoy your break, everyone.